You have just ingested a large amount of a strong anesthetic. You will be unconscious for the next few minutes, literally on the brink of death, with the goal to be transported into a morgue. The goal is to get in, wake up, find the body of your presumed dead friend, and retrieve the evidence that will, if found by the police, cause your brother to go to jail for life. This is Play Dead. Let's go. This is Chloe, a second-year medical student who lives with her brother TJ. Their father just passed away, but the insurance company denies the payouts due to certain circumstances connected to his death. Because of this, the siblings are struggling to keep their home, pay for college, and frankly just survive. Desperate to get the money, TJ, together with Chloe's ex-boyfriend Ross, are about to rob a store. He is the wheelman, while Ross enters with an airsoft gun trying to get as much cash as possible. While TJ is waiting, a sudden gunshot is heard. Ross comes out holding his shoulder while a man with a shotgun comes after him, blasting. TJ tries to help Ross, but he tells him to just go as the windows get blown out. He floors the car and leaves his friend back. Well, that could have gone better. I don't blame them for being so desperate for cash, but a robbery is not the solution. However, even then, it could be planned better, right? They obviously had no idea who the shop owner was, so it's clear they haven't done their due diligence beforehand to pinpoint the dangers, like a shotgun-wielding owner. Anyway, TJ is lucky to be alive and at least got away. He goes home and tells everything to Chloe as she attends to his wounds. He says that Ross is possibly dead and apologizes while explaining he couldn't just sit back and do nothing while they lose pretty much everything they have. The siblings are discussing the robbery, with Chloe checking every detail to make sure TJ won't be caught. He claims that they wore masks and gloves, used a stolen car which he ditched and burned afterwards, and they never told anyone about their plans. Everything seems good at first, but then he remembers that they planned everything over the phone. The same phone that Ross still has in his pocket. Rookie mistake. Chloe says that he will get 25 to life for a robbery where a casualty is involved, even if he was just the driver, so they must retrieve that phone as soon as possible. So they head down to the morgue as Chloe explains the state of things. Normally, belongings of victims go to the police as evidence, but not in the area where they live. Instead, belongings go with the bodies to the morgue, where they will be sorted and stored for the cops to claim the morning after, together with the autopsy report. Lucky for them, due to budget cuts, there is only a single coroner working there. The plan is to distract him while TJ tries to find a way in. Their plan fails, however, as the coroner ignores her request to see a deceased friend, and TJ can't find a way in. They regroup and conclude that the only possible way in would be inside a body bag. So they contact the veterinarian TJ goes to for drugs and request some propofol. The woman hesitates at first because of the related dangers, but Chloe, with her medical knowledge, can convince her that they know what they're in for. The plan is as follows. She will inject her propofol, lose consciousness, and apparently all related vital signs, but still remain alive. TJ waits 30 minutes to make sure her body is cold, and then report finding a body. Once they transport her corpse into the morgue, the medicine will wear off, she retrieves the phone, and then figures out a way to escape. Easy. So she injects herself, gives a heartfelt goodbye, and then technically dies. No, she would just be fully dead here, not just playing dead. See, there is a couple problems with her plan. First of all, it's true that this drug does slow down bodily functions to the point of death, and that is why medical staff use ventilators and other equipment to keep patients alive. Without any life support, we would just die from taking this drug with no way of return, unless you're lucky. And it's not like several minutes of being dead will wear off once the drug does, right? Speaking of which, the second problem is the drug wearing off. Even if Chloe could miraculously survive being in such a state, the effects of propofol only last for about 5 to 10 minutes. This is why it's normally given continuously through an IV drip. 10 minutes is enough time to kill us, but not enough time for emergency services to arrive and take us to the morgue, especially if she wants to wait until her body is cold, which leads to yet another problem. EMTs would still attempt resuscitation. They can't declare anyone dead unless they're decapitated or show signs of rigor mortis, which takes at least 2 hours. So they would try to revive Chloe and take her to the hospital, and from there a doctor would declare her dead or not. But apart from that, playing dead to be shipped into a morgue inside a body bag to retrieve evidence is a pretty cool idea. So let us have a look how this turns out. Chloe wakes up in a morgue freezer. She doesn't see Ross' body, so she attempts to leave but is locked in. Thankfully though, this freezer isn't as cold as the one Millie dealt with in our previous video. The coroner starts approaching, so Chloe quickly hops back on her stretcher and lies still. He enters and starts checking toe tags and taking notes. As he leans down to unlock a stretcher, he makes eye contact with Chloe, forcing her into a high-stakes staring contest that I would have won. He soon leaves, allowing Chloe to follow shortly afterwards. She eventually wanders into the autopsy room with the corpse still on a table. I'm not sure if this man is just terrible at his job or if the movie makers didn't do their research, but cadavers shouldn't be left out like this to get warm. They need to be kept cold at all times to slow decomposition. She then finds some spare scrubs to wear and discovers the room in which evidence and other items that came with bodies are stored. Jackpot. The problem? The coroner is inside. In fact, he almost finds her when she makes a noise, but instead goes to answer a buzz from the intercom that came on almost at the same time. Whew. Since the evidence room is locked and the coroner has the key, she follows him to the security office where he opens the electronic gate to let someone in. He then heads down the hall and opens 2 locked doors that lead outside. A man named Mannix comes in, who is apparently a courier for organ trafficking coming to pick up the latest shipment. After that, the coroner heads back inside and gets back to work. Now, that is not unheard of for people to be organ donors, right? And organs are in fact collected at all hours because transplants have to be done whenever the donor has passed. So there is a chance that this is actually legit. I don't think so, and you don't think so, but there's still a chance. But regardless of that, let's just focus on what we came here to do instead of poking our noses into things we have no business with yet. Since we have the element of surprise right now, we could jump the coroner to get the keys by force. Of course, that could mean hurting a potentially innocent man just doing his job, or result in us getting busted if our attack fails. But I also doubt he would willingly help us, even if we ask nicely. So the only option is to get our hands onto them keys. Chloe enters another autopsy room and finds Ross's body. She mourns for a moment and then goes to leave, except she is grabbed by him. He's very much alive, being given fluids and having vitals monitored. He doesn't know what's going on fully, thinking he is at a hospital, but he knows that the man with the keys is dangerous. Chloe swears that she will get him out of here, but covers him back up for now. Alright, this is suspicious, obviously. With an alive patient at a morgue, we can assume the worst from this coroner, especially with the scene involving the guy named Mannix before. It's pretty obvious what's going on, right? The problem here is that Ross is still alive, but probably not too much longer, as otherwise he would be already transported back into a hospital. Meaning the coroner doesn't care for human life, which makes this whole operation much riskier. Now, getting the phone first is still #1 priority. I would try to get my hands on the phone and then contact the police, call them over, and probably destroy the phone. But that's easier said than done. Let's have a look what happens next. The coroner gowns up for operation. In doing so, he removes his valuables, including the ring of keys, and sets them on a side table. Chloe sneaks in while he's focused on his work and carefully steals the keys. Risky, but well done. She rushes back to rescue Ross, but should have retrieved the evidence first, meaning the phone. With the phone, they could have also used it to call TJ and alarm him of the dangers of this place. As mentioned before, I would call the cops as well. But now thinking about it a second time, this being a very small town and the possibility of them knowing that Ross wasn't actually dead at the scene of the crime could mean that they are in on this operation here. So maybe calling the cops is not a good idea. Now, as she helps him through the hallway, we see the coroner finish up his work and reach for his belongings, before quickly realizing that his keys are missing. He starts to look around and retraces his steps. Meanwhile, Chloe and Ross make it to the doors, but she doesn't know which key to use, so it takes a while to open them. While they're doing that, the coroner breaks into the security office and sees them through the camera. As Chloe gets the last door unlocked, she turns to help Ross, who at this point has become too weak to stand. The coroner rushes into the room prepared with a gas mask and smokes out our characters until they pass out. I understand wanting to save your friend, but we can't help anyone if we're dead. We should have taken care of ourselves first and then started the rescue efforts. Chloe wakes up and finds Ross unconscious back on his original operating table and herself strapped to a gurney. The coroner's there too, prepping for an operation again. He explains his disgust for criminals and thieves and how they are the detriment of society, so he wants to put their lives to a better use by giving their body parts to those in need. What a nice guy. Of course, he doesn't do this for free, selling the parts for thousands of dollars. Chloe rebukes the statement, claiming death isn't deserved as punishment for small crimes, and calls him a sicko, which I can agree with. The coroner calls himself the cure though, as he cuts open Ross for his liver, ending his life right in front of Chloe. He puts the liver into a cooler and then sprays some liquid nitrogen inside. His phone then starts to ring, so he gags Chloe, then holds a scalpel to her throat, telling her not to say a word. On the phone is his daughter, who apparently is blissfully unaware of her father's hobbies. Now we could take this opportunity to call out for help, but with our lives at stake, it's probably not worth the risk. Luckily, before continuing with her, he needs to do other work first, so he leaves the room for now. Now I know we're here to root for Chloe, but if we were psychopathic morticians, it would make more sense to at least lock her away in the morgue freezer. Leaving her unattended just gives her a chance to escape. But hey, what do I know? Chloe uses the opportunity given and twists and bends to unfasten her leg straps, then uses her newly freed feet to push her gurney over to reach his operation tools. Unfortunately though, she drops the scalpel and has to use the noisy bone saw instead. Of course, the coroner hears that and enters the now empty room. He grabs another saw and searches for Chloe, eventually leaving the room to look somewhere else. Turns out though, Chloe was hanging on the underside of the operating table the whole time. Thumbs up for that. Alright, at this point we could just focus on survival and hide until the coroner eventually leaves for home. But that is unlikely to happen since with us being on the loose, his life is on the line as well, since we now know what this guy has been up to for God knows how long. The goal also hasn't changed. We still need to get the phone and make for an escape, but with the killer inside actively looking for us, things have become a bit more complicated. Fact is, this guy will not hesitate to kill us, so we shouldn't hesitate to defend us. After saying goodbye to Ross, Chloe uses the liquid nitrogen to break the lock to the evidence room. Smart move. She then locates Ross' stuff using the ID on his toe tag and goes through his belongings to find his phone. Instead, however, she only finds his, in quote, gun. Before she can continue her search, she is interrupted by the coroner entering. She hides while he picks up Ross' cell phone himself, urging her out of her hideout and threatens him with the airsoft pistol she just collected. Chloe shoots at him, even though it's just a fake gun, and manages to damage his eye, proving parents everywhere correct. She flees down the hall and finds stairs to a basement, while the coroner goes to use Ross' face to gain access to his phone and find out what all this fuss is about. In the basement, Chloe finds a bunch of patients being kept alive with several stitch marks and missing body parts. It's pretty grotesque. With this sight, there is no doubt I would off that dude the first chance I get. If he catches us first, I am sure we will be joining those people down here pretty quickly. The coroner starts speaking over the intercom at this point, apparently having figured everything out from the messages on the phone, including her name and TJ's actions. Meanwhile, Chloe breaks into his office and uses the landline to call TJ, warning him of the situation. Their conversation is cut short though because the coroner finally shows up with his guard dog. Perfect. Our character Chloe barely gets away by throwing objects at the dog. She eventually is cornered but resourcefully grabs Ross' liver nearby and uses it to bait the dog into a nearby room. Thank you very much, Ross. Using the few seconds gained through this, she makes it to the security office where she sees that TJ has called the sheriff as they pull up. She opens the electronic doors and runs to them. As they meet in the doorway, she explains everything to the officer, who seems to believe her. But as she turns around, he clubs her from behind. Now, we can't blame them for wanting to call the cops for help, but since we know that Ross didn't die, especially not at the crime scene, it would have been pretty easy to conclude that the police might be in on this, so... Well, anyway, the sheriff starts beating TJ, so Chloe pulls out the airsoft gun and attempts another bluff. It works this time, and the siblings manage to get outside. TJ attempts to climb a fence, but is electrocuted in the process, allowing the dog the sheriff let loose a second ago to bite his arm. Chloe is unable to stop the dog on her own, so she beats it with brains by bridging the electricity with her body. Smart move. They flee to a dead end with locked cellar doors, decide to break in by using a pipe, and then bar the doors from the inside. There, the brother and sister hug for the first time since they reunited just a few minutes ago. Now, the sheriff and coroner show up and cuff the cellar from the outside to ensure that the siblings are trapped. Moments later, Mannix returns for the previously promised liver. The coroner greets him and tries to explain the challenges they are currently having, adding that he needs to come back later. Not liking this suspicious behavior, Mannix looks around and discovers the cop car. He puts together that the coroner must be working with a cop and doesn't seem to be bothered by it at all. It's just another layer of security, I guess. However, the sheriff thinks otherwise, as he blasts at Mannix with a shotgun at first sight. Looks like he didn't like anybody knowing about his involvement. Meanwhile, the siblings crawl through the airshaft until they spot their enemies, dragging a still alive but injured man. The two are arguing about losing money now and what to do. They decide to blame this whole mess on the intruders and use one of them for a replacement liver. Once they leave, Chloe decides to rescue Mannix, showing that she seems to take the Hippocratic Oath pretty seriously. Now, the cold tactic would have been to leave this man to die, take his car keys, and then finally get away. Wouldn't blame anyone to go this route. However, the warm logic, on the other hand, is to help this man, not just for ethical reasons, but also because the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Plus, we can use all the help we can get, and we will soon see that this was totally worth it. Now, they drag Mannix through the vent into the basement and treat his wounds the best they can. He shows his gratitude by offering $10,000, but is talked up to $25,000 by TJ. Way to go, man. A tear gas suddenly appears as the sheriff and coroner enter with gas masks. The group grabs some nearby oxygen tanks and masks before hiding among the patients. Chloe is quickly seen and shot at by the cop, so TJ tries to sneak up on him and strike him with the O2 tank. Unfortunately, the coroner also sneaks up behind him and zaps him with a stun gun. The sheriff corners Chloe behind a desk, but she uses the hammer she retrieved from the basement to break the oxygen cylinder, causing it to fly like a rocket right into this man's face, which I loved. However, aiming is literally a hit or miss. Might have been better to just wait for the sheriff to approach and then take out his kneecaps with a hammer than to rely on a lucky shot. As she crawls away, suffering from the tear gas before the coroner shows up. When he arrives and finds the officer dead, he realizes that his operation is over. He decides to take out every patient with the sheriff's gun, then returns to the stunned TJ, tells him he owes him a liver, and drags him into the operating room. Chloe, still dizzy from the gas, sneaks into the operating room as well and finds her brother strapped to the table, but alone. This should be seen as an obvious trap. We can't really go and get help though, as TJ will likely be dead before anyone can arrive. But if we want to save him, we shouldn't try to do so without intel or a means of defense. We could look through the security cameras for the coroner's position first, then create a distraction by leaving something running in a nearby part of the morgue, and from there we can set our own trap and attack the coroner with the hammer, or just attempt a quick rescue while he is distracted. She doesn't do this though, and instead rushes to try and free her brother. The coroner comes from around the corner and grabs her, after which a massive fight breaks out. Both are holding up pretty well and fight pretty decently, at least until he wins the upper hand and almost finishes her off. However, out of the blue, Mannix comes out from his hiding and jams a switchblade into his flank. Glad we helped this guy before. Now the fight continues until Chloe gets a chance to end it with a clean headshot using a knife she receives from Mannix. She frees her brother from his restraints, and TJ asks Mannix for the rescue money he promised earlier. He claims that he just rescued him as well, so they are even, but he still needs a liver to deliver and will pay in full for one. and without missing a beat, Chloe begins operating on a coroner's corpse, removes the needed liver, and everyone is happy with our siblings making it out alive with 25 grand to their name. Chloe also thought about grabbing Ross' phone before they left, making sure that whatever had happened back there would not be traced back to them. Still, with all those bodies in there, it won't take long before a huge investigation breaks out that will inevitably threaten their safety one more time. If I were them, I would take the money and make for a big escape and start somewhere else anew. And with that, my friends, I thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to us if you haven't but enjoy our videos, and I'll catch you again next week. Peace out and binge another one.